Thanks for joining us on our streaming service for your First Alert Drought Forecast. I'm your First Alert meteorologist, Callie Zanandri. According to the latest U.S. Drought Monitor, parts of eastern Colorado continue to remain drought-free thanks to recent rainfall. While southwestern Colorado didn't see the heaviest rainfall totals, it was enough to support a small but meaningful improvement in local drought conditions. With the dry conditions across much of western Colorado, a Stage 1 fire restriction remains in place across several counties, including Summit and Eagle. As the wildfire risk stays elevated, looking ahead, the seasonal temperature outlook is trending hotter than normal statewide, a pattern we'll be watching closely through the summer months. The good news for the short term, we are expecting a cold front and increased rain chances by the end of the week, which could bring relief to parched areas. For the bigger picture, the Climate Prediction Center says Colorado has equal chances of being wetter than drier than normal for July through September, with northeast Colorado looking drier than normal. Now joining us to talk more about Colorado and how it's preparing and managing for these dry conditions is Retta Brugger, a range management specialist. Retta, can you start by explaining what the Colorado Agricultural Drought Advisors Program is and why it was created?
Right. Well, it's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me. So the Colorado Agricultural Drought Advisors Program was started by myself. I work for Colorado State University Extension, and Harrison Topp, who's a farmer in Western Colorado, as well as at the time he worked for Rocky Mountain Farmers Union. So it was started in the pandemic and in 2020, which was also a severe drought year, in order to address some of the issues that farmers and ranchers were experiencing with regards to drought and provide resources, technical resources, in order to assist them in being better prepared and more resilient to drought and have a sense of agency when it came to coping with the impacts of drought. So today, in the past couple of years, we've done several things. We've created a lot of technical resources that includes a drought handbook and a website that has all kinds of materials on different drought strategies and specifically how to make a drought plan for farmers and ranchers. We've also conducted a program that we call the Drought Plan Program, where we worked one-on-one with farmers and ranchers throughout the state, paired people with technical experts who guided them through the process of making a drought plan. And then we've also designed and done a pilot training on drought preparedness, which we called the Drought Leadership Training. And we're looking to expand that in the coming years with a new grant that we acquired. So basically, we're a loose network of folks representing various agencies, and we come together to work on drought preparedness and resilience and provide technical resources, connection, and one-on-one technical service providers to farmers and ranchers to help them deal with drought conditions.
Yeah, you provide so many important services. Now, your mission focuses both on short-term response and long-term resilience. How do you strike that balance between immediate drought relief and future planning?
Yeah. Well, when we work with farmers and ranchers, it's really guided by them and what the drought vulnerabilities and impacts that they experience and that they have. And of course, as you can imagine, it also depends on where you are with regards to drought. So sometimes, people are experiencing really severe impacts, like let's say in southwestern Colorado in 2018, that was a really dry year. And so there's different things that you're going to want to do during that time period than you would, let's say, in January of 2023, which was a really wet year, at least on the western slope. So we try to meet people where they're at and provide resources based on where you're at. We think of it kind of like when you're really, really sick, you probably, first thing you need to do is get out of that situation, get better. When you're feeling better, there are things that you can do to protect your health long term, like diet, exercise, whatever. But when you're in that very sick position, that's probably not the most important thing you can be doing. So similarly with drought conditions, again, try to meet people where they're at. And if they're in a really drought scenario, the strategies that are going to be reasonable and actionable are really different from those that you might use when drought is less of a possibility or more remote. So, there's certain things Both are really important, I want to say. So when we work with producers on drought plans, we incorporate both short and long-term strategies. But just as an example, long-term strategies might include things like infrastructure improvements, water storage, changes to irrigation infrastructure, things like that. So those are the types of things that, similarly with diet and exercise, they're not going to help you when you're in the midst of a drought, like where we are right now on the Western Slope, because they take a long time to implement. So in that case, you do want to start working towards those things, or maybe you would if they're right for your operation, but you also want to think about some things that you can do right now to lessen the impacts of drought. And those might be a range of things. They may be utilizing FSA programs, FSA disaster relief programs. It might be changing irrigation strategies, prioritizing certain crops, etc. But we want to emphasize, and we do with all of our programs, that there's different ways to think about drought. There's both long and short-term strategies for coping with drought, and those are both a really important part of drought resilience.
Now, how do you measure the success of your advising and training efforts, and what outcomes or feedback do you track?
Yeah, so we track several different outcomes, and we gather that information in a couple different ways. We've done surveys with workshop participants and participants in a program we call the Drought Plan Program. And then we've also done follow-up in person or on the phone interviews with participants to get a little more of a qualitative sense of the impacts that they experience from participating. So one drawback so far is that all of those assessments have been short-term because we've started the programs in about 2021 and we're only in 2025. So we really don't know the long-term impacts, which is part of what we hope to accomplish in the current grant that we have that started last year. But some of the outcomes that we track are things like, did people make a drought plan? Do they feel more prepared for a drought? Are they more aware of resources that can help with coping with drought situations and help them work towards resilience? Those kinds of things. I'm happy to report so far that I believe it's over 90% of the people who have participated said that they feel more prepared for drought, that they are aware of more technical resources to cope with drought, and 100% of the people who participated said they would recommend our programs to another producer. So I think that's some really good feedback so far. Another piece of feedback that we've received is that our programs have some benefits beyond just that creating a drought plan, feeling prepared for drought aspects. We've also had people report in the interviews that creating a drought plan has helped reduce stress levels because they're dealing with less, or they've found a way to encapsulate the uncertainty that comes with drought. And that in some cases it's helped spur conversations within their family or management team so that they are communicating more effectively about drought, which is a very challenging situation. So that's how we track the impacts with our next grant, which is from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, National Institute of Food and Agriculture program. We are able to hire a staff person who will help elevate our programs that we have so far, but they will also be able to do a better job evaluating long-term the impacts that people are experiencing, which we can use to even help improve our programs more.
So much great work that you guys are doing, Retta. Well, thank you so much for being with us, and we will see you back here next week for your First Alert Drought Report.